I literally went bankrupt at 28 and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. This video is so personal to me. It's such an intimate story about how I lost everything and all of the ways that it changed my life for the better. So let's get into it. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley Rodriguez. This is No Brands Land, hosted on my Ashley Speaks channel, and I am talking all things humanizing business and marketing with soul. I should say the best thing that ever happened to me from a business perspective. I have certainly had better highs in my life than that, but from a business perspective, it really shifted the way that I approach business and what I wanted to do from that point on. And let's just get into the story because you'll want to hear this. At 27 years old, I decided I was going to launch and open a brick and mortar business. And I did so within 6 to 9 months. I was able to get a really lucrative space, a massive space in the city that I lived in at the time. And they waived all of the fees to get us in. They were so excited. And after we opened, 3 months later, I was closing and filing for bankruptcy. I literally went bankrupt at 28 and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. If you're struggling financially or you feel like you're drowning, this is what I learned from the hardest moments of my life and how it completely shifted my perspective to see things on a bigger picture. The business that we opened, it was a brick and mortar business in the indoor playground space. Where I lived at the time, there was not a lot of competition in that space. We had a lot of families, including my own, where, living in Florida at the time, it is extremely hot during the summer. There's a lot of long rainy seasons. And so I just thought, let me create a space that I would enjoy bringing my kids to, that they can enjoy meeting people, creating a sense of community. So I decided I was going to launch this space. Now, if we just rewind it just a few years, 2020, we all know what time period that was. My original idea was to open up some form of an escape room, but I wanted to make it accessible for kids too. So I wanted escape rooms that were designed for both adults and other rooms where kids could do them. I just think it's such a great way to tap into their creativity and their problem-solving skills, and that's what I wanted to do. But for obvious reasons, 2020 was not the time to do that, so I put that on the back burner. Now in 2021, after having my son, I made the decision that I wanted to pursue that goal, that dream of opening a brick and mortar entertainment space for families. But I decided to kind of pivot away from an escape room only, and I decided to go more of an indoor play space that had an escape room in the back. And the area that I looked at, it was a really nice plaza. It was corporate owned, which was mistake number one. We'll get to that. But it was a massive space. We had families driving from over an hour away to come visit us because you guys know by now my background is in marketing. So I did a really great job getting the word out there, getting on the front page of our local magazines. It was a big hit. So financially, this is where it gets a little bit weird. I did not file bankruptcy because of finances. And this is why I think this story is so important and what we can all learn from it together. Now, we had really great credit. We were in the very high 700s by the time that we were able to leverage some credit to open everything up. I did finance a lot of the equipment that we had in the space, as well as some credit cards. I know, big mistake, right? So that's the thing about the business world. There's a big push and a big conversation around, leverage credit, leverage debt, leverage this, which is great because yes, it does give you opportunities to do something that maybe you couldn't do just bootlegging it or funding it from scratch. However, there are obvious risks involved. And what ended up happening was I had budgeted for our monthly finances. I thought I planned everything to a T. I was working with a legal team. I was working with real estate agents. I had all of my T's crossed and my I's dotted. That's exactly why they wanted us in the space, because my business plan was so well done, thanks to business school, was so well done that I was able to get the space. Even at the age of 27, going into 28, And being a first-time brick and mortar business owner, they saw the vision too, so I thought. Unfortunately, it was my first brick and mortar business, and so I underestimated all of the unexpected expenses that come from it. For example, something that might seem small but was a massive hit to my finances every month was the air conditioning unit. We had a 4,000 square foot space. It had very tall ceilings. If I can find a picture, I'll include it in here. It was a beautiful space, and we did not know when we leased the space, we just didn't even think to check for it, was that the unit had 2 air conditioning units instead of 1. So what I thought was going to be a $200 or $300 bill every month ended up around $700 every single month just for air conditioning. And hindsight is always 20/20. If I were to do it again, I would certainly choose a space that's not as expensive. Our rent was just over $8,000 a month, and that did not include everything that I had financed that I was also making monthly payments on. So it was doable, but it was so stretched that it was really difficult to scale. And moving into the second part of the story, why things played out the way it did, I had over leveraged my capacity. So it wasn't even a financial thing at this point. We were paying our bills, but just emotionally, I was so zapped that I just wasn't available to really critically think or try to problem solve. I just wanted to stop. Now, the kicker with that, obviously, I'm a little bit smarter than, just winging it as far as opening an entire business and not doing any due diligence or checks. I called our local energy company to find out what the average bill was for that space. Did not know at the time that that space had been vacant for over a year. So they were giving us results or information that really just was not accurate to what the cost would be with a tenant in the space. They were giving us results and readings from the space being empty, essentially. One thing I would like to note is that I tend to be sort of a visionary. I have a big vision in mind. I have ideas. I have creativity, things I want to explore and open and start in the world. But I realized very quickly when I was operating the space that passion and creativity does not equal customer service. And because I was serving families, and more specifically parents, which was honestly an awful experience. I never thought parents could be so difficult. Being a parent myself, it was an awful experience working with the community. There was maybe a handful of people that were really supportive, really just backing us and behind us and excited for us to be there. But what I found was that most families were really critical in the sense that I was having to figure out how to balance parents who were upset because they wanted to wear socks versus parents who were upset because they didn't want to wear socks, parents who were angry that we wouldn't allow them to eat in the play spaces, parents that were upset that we didn't have certain gates on the front. I mean, the list just went on. And where I really made a mistake was that because I had advocated for the space so heavily, especially using my face, everybody knew that I was the owner. And that created a lot of conflict for me, where parents felt friendly enough to come up and make their suggestions and make their comments and give me their complaints. And there was just no emotional buffer for me to navigate that. I was just becoming completely overwhelmed and exhausted. Also, during that time, my son was in and out of the hospital because he had adverse reactions to his childhood immunizations. And so we were in and out of the hospital dealing with him. He was very sickly. He was not doing very well. Thankfully, he is so healthy now. We did a lot of detoxing and a lot of health maintenance for him. And at that time, I was so stressed. I was so stressed. I cannot even put into words that I was trying to keep these people happy. COVID was still going on. I remember there was one day I had to close. And I put it on our website, hey, we're closed due to COVID. My husband and my daughter, I believe, had it at that time. And so I just didn't feel comfortable going in and possibly exposing other families. And somebody left me a 1-star review because they drove 20 minutes to get there and we were closed. Didn't check any of our socials, our website, nothing. And in the plaza that I was in, it was such a high-end plaza that we weren't able to leave papers on the window or notes or signs because they would negatively ping us for that. or it just was frowned upon. So I did not put any notes on the door because it just wasn't allowed in that plaza. It just looked tacky for them. So I guess that's what the issue was. Anyway, so it was things like that. It was like a constant trying to put out fires and make people happy, on top of dealing with my son who was in and out of the hospital, on top of trying to manage things with the corporation that we were dealing with. And this is really when the breaking point kind of started to creep up on me. Prior to leasing that space at all, I worked with a real estate agent who helped us negotiate getting tenant reimbursements for improvements that we made on the space. And we spent about $16,000 getting this space renovated, which was way below market value because my family does renovations for a living. So they were able to really help us with that. And as we were moving into our third month, we had approvals to get the rent or to get the reimbursement done to us, which was going to cover the next few months of rent so that we could get a nice little cash pile to the side and really prepare to start paying everything at the end of summertime. I didn't know this back then, but I found out after we closed, after everything had kind of settled, that they brought on new investors. And the way that these corporations in the plazas make money is they bring in investors. And in order to do that, they need really high caliber brands like national franchises in their space. Unfortunately, we were a small owned business, a small mom and pop shop, indoor play space, and we just didn't have that national franchise backing or that reputation to really bring in investors. Something happened. I'm not sure exactly on their end what happened, but they approved that they were going to give us reimbursements. We did everything we were supposed to do. And then I let the team know, hey, like we need the reimbursements so that we can go ahead and cover our rent for the next few months. And at some point after they had already approved the reimbursements, somebody from their team came back and said, well, if you pay this month, then we'll give you the reimbursements, which was a complete breach in contract. But I don't have the pockets or the backing to fight a massive corporation. And so what ended up happening was they forced us into a default status. That essentially meant that they were not going to reimburse us. The entire reason we negotiated that was so that we could cover all of our expenses for a few months while we put everything to the side, because as a new business, only a few months in, we were just breaking even. We didn't have extra money to try to pay out rent and our team at the time without having to come out of pocket in a big way. And so that was the whole reason that we negotiated the reimbursement from the very beginning and had the approvals, and they decided last minute that they were not going to honor that. Now, even though they breached contract, because they forced us into a default status at the same time, per the lease, they did not have to then honor the reimbursement because we were a default status. So it became this very tit for tat play that I never expected. The way that they moved us in, got everything done so fast. They were so excited to have us there. They were so excited to work with us, to all of a sudden have a change in tone now that we're in the space and we've renovated the space, where they were totally fine kicking us out because of some tit for tat cat and mouse game. It was really disheartening. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. They refused to give us our reimbursement that they had already approved via email. We had already gotten all of the approvals that we needed, that they were going to credit our account instead of sending us a check because we were going to use it for rent anyways. So long story short, I know now that negotiating reimbursements like that to help us cover expenses is probably not the best way to do things. Again, we were young business owners. They told us every sweet thing that we wanted to hear. And we worked with lawyers, a legal team. We worked with real estate agents. So we felt very protected and we felt very cooperative, that everybody was really kind of working together to make this happen. So long story short, 3 months after we opened, we renovated the space for 4 months. And then we opened, and 3 months after we opened, I closed the doors because I was just at a complete state of burnout, which is what has kind of helped build the foundation for what I do with IO psychology now, and understanding work-life balance, understanding the need to be smarter with my time and my energy. And so here's what I would do differently now that you know the story. Here's how I would maybe change that. And then also, here's what doing that bankruptcy did for us. If you've been around the world of life, I guess, at any point in time, you're probably aware that a bankruptcy is not ideal. And I noticed when I was working with the bankruptcy lawyers that it really is painted in such a negative light and makes you feel like you're never going to survive it. And I just want to let you know that that's not the case. For this bankruptcy, I don't know if you know, but the bankruptcies, the Chapter 11s, which is a restructure, or Chapter 7, which gets rid of everything, is in place for moments of crisis like this. It allows small business owners an opportunity to try to really put themselves out there and contribute to the greater economy by providing jobs. I had a team of 7 people. So I had an assistant manager. I had 2 of them, actually. I had to fire one, which was just another crazy story. But I had 2 assistant managers. I had a team of 5 teenage interns, because in Florida, you can hire at the age of 14. So they helped me with cleaning. They helped me with my events, especially because it was really focused on kids. It was just a great partnership to work with them and their parents and their families. And so going through all of that, I realized when I was facing the bankruptcy that it was going to be a mental reset for us. And the lawyers that we were using at the time were just so welcoming, so warm, so understanding. They had seen this over and over and over again. So they really put us at ease through the process. We were able to keep our home. We were able to keep our cars because we didn't have enough equity in them that had to get rid of everything. But essentially, it wiped out the 3-year lease that we were on, that we were personally guaranteed on. That is why we had to file bankruptcy, because instead of guaranteeing the LLC, I did a personal guarantee. That was the only way that they said they would let us into the space. And my husband was supportive. And because we were married, they forced him to be on it as well. Looking back, hindsight is always 2020. I would never do that again. My husband has a business now, and he is the only one on that lease. And that just helps kind of safeguard and protect our family from situations like this, because it ultimately did force us both into a bankruptcy status. But what that did was it got rid of the $300,000+ in debt. It basically kept it on the business, which we then closed down, and allowed us to basically safeguard ourselves from being pursued in the court of law from this company that we just didn't have money to fight. I did work with a legal team very briefly after this happened, and they did say that we had a leg to stand on, that we could sue them for breaching contract. We had all of our timestamps, all of the emails in place that showed how this was happening. We had the approvals that they were going to give us, the reimbursement. And we had all of the correspondence that showed that they, out of nowhere, changed their mind and decided to breach contract and force us into default. The reason we didn't pursue that was because if we decided, according to the lawyer at the time, decided to sue them, the company or the corporation could come back and countersue, and then we could lose everything, including our home and our cars. So I didn't want to put my family through that. I didn't want to put my kids through that. I didn't have the money to fight them. I was completely wiped out from every angle. And so we just decided that a bankruptcy would be best for peace of mind, so that we could really just end that chapter and move on and heal and learn from it. And that is why we chose to do it that way. The reason that bankruptcy was the best thing that happened to us was because it gave us an opportunity to shift our mindset. We had now gone through what some consider to be the worst thing, rock bottom, that anybody could go through. And all it did was make our lives better. It completely got rid of the stress of the debt that we owed from that lease. It allowed us to look at money differently and how we were leveraging credit. I would never heavily finance that way again. I'm very anti-debt in a lot of ways now, because I understood the amount of pressure and stress it put on us. And it's so sad, because even when we join the military, or if you go off into college, you're constantly from every angle being inundated with, oh, you're pre-approved for this, credit that, credit this. If you're going to use credit, then yes, a credit score is important. But if you're not going to play the system or participate in the system, you really don't need the credit. So a credit score is really only important if you are going to be leveraging credit at any time, like buying a house, buying a car. Better credit means that your rates are usually better. Other than that, once we were kind of kicked out of the system temporarily by filing the bankruptcy, we realized that we didn't have to play that game. We didn't have to be a part of that system anymore. And that allowed us to do a reset on the way that we see money. It allowed us to pursue financial literacy in different ways and to really look at our lives and how we save and balance our books, to just set us up so that we don't get forced into a space where we have to leverage massive amounts of credit. So that was the lesson there. That's what it did for us. It allowed us a moment to be free. It allowed us to break away from the mindset and the system that you absolutely need the best credit score ever. We're now more than 2 years past that time, and we are able to get loans again if we need to, if we're buying a house or getting a car or something like that. But we're just not interested. My car is paid off now. We sold our home, which was a massive benefit. We were able to then use that money to open up our shops that we have now. It just was overall a good thing. So what my takeaway would be is that if you are facing some kind of financial struggle, a bankruptcy is not the worst thing ever. I've now talked to a few people who have done it as well, more than once, some of them. And the overwhelming response is that it's relief. It's absolutely relief. It's a reset. It's there for a reason. When you go through a bankruptcy, you have to be approved. You can't just file and then they're going to be like, yeah, wipe off all your debt. No problem. You do have to be approved based on the circumstances and what you owe. So it's not like anybody can just file. There has to be a very legitimate circumstance or amount of money that you owe for you to even be approved to do something like this. So it is safeguarded against potential abuses. And I don't know, for us, it just allowed us to really break away from the system, to see money differently, and to let go of the stress of the experience that we had that was really outside of our control. And moving forward to where I'm at now, success for me does not necessarily look like a massive bank account. It really looks like freedom, clarity, balance, all of these things that I want to be able to feel when I'm moving through my business. I don't want to feel stressed. I don't want investors. I don't want to feel like I have to jump through hoops for people. I just want a nice little life, and I manage my books at home so that everything evens out nicely. We're very stable. We're very happy with it, but I have peace of mind. And that made me realize very quickly, if you could learn anything from this, one, do it. Pursue the dream, because even the worst case scenario, which for us was a bankruptcy, it actually made our lives so much better. It changed our perspective. It gave us an understanding of finances that we really didn't have before, of the system that we really didn't have before, and also make sure that you have a buffer. If you're going to own a business, unless you want to be the go-to and everybody complaining or offering their options or things like that, make sure there's a buffer. You hear this a lot with real estate when people have properties that they manage, where you don't want them to know that you are the owner of the property. You want to be the property manager. It's the same thing. So if you can let your ego go, people don't need to know who owns your business. Safeguard yourself, your peace of mind, your sanity, and allow yourself to just be the manager or something else within the business if they're going to see you, but safeguard yourself. Nobody needs to know that you are the owner. And that's all I have to say about this experience. This is my story time. If you've also gone through a bankruptcy or you've experienced something similar with an awful landlord, a commercial landlord, I would love to have a conversation with you in the comments. Drop your comments. Let's show the world that it is not the end all be all, and that you absolutely can come up and excel and have success after hitting rock bottom. Thank you so much for being here. If you are a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I do hope that you subscribe and follow and all of the things. Something I wanted to share too, I'm going to start doing this in every video because I love these so much, is the vision board books that I made. It's just like a vision board, except instead of a poster, this can travel with you. It's very thin, it's hardcover, and you can still do all of the fun things like pasting pictures on the inside so that you can track your yearly goals. I think I just got makeup on my book. Anyways, on the inside, you can actually interact with your goals all year long. So there's pivot points, there's milestones, there's so many things. You can actually interact with this all year long to reach your goals and find your success without just having a poster hanging on the wall showing you pretty photos. I remember one year I did a vision board poster, and I had pictures on there, and by the end of the year I was like, what did I want with that? What was the reason for that picture? What was the reason for that quote? So that is what led me to just create a vision board book. I hated that if I traveled I couldn't take it with me unless I took a picture of it. So this just solves so many problems. It's so just doable. I have like 15 different styles, so if the minimalist one is not your style, I have cutesy scrapbook styles for the creatives, people who just like a little bit more creativity, more color, more fun. You can find these on Barnes & Noble or Amazon, and it just supports everything that I do here. Thank you again, and I will see you on the next video.